20 backyard hens, fed and housed right, will lay over 6,000 eggs in a year. That's enough to feed your family, your neighbors, and still have eggs left to sell. But most first-time chicken owners never see those numbers because they make one wrong decision before the birds ever arrive. By the end of this video, you'll know how to set up a backyard flock of 20 to 50 chickens for eggs, meat, or both that pays for itself and feeds your family. Let's start with the decision everything else depends on. Here's the part most beginners skip, and it costs them 6 months and a couple $100s before they figure it out. You have to decide what you want from your flock before you order a single chick. Not after they arrive, not when you see them in the catalog, before.
Because there are 3 different kinds of chickens, bred for 3 different lives, and they don't switch jobs. A meat bird won't lay eggs, a laying hen won't fill your freezer. And the people who mix them up end up with 20 birds eating feed and producing almost nothing. If you want fast meat, you want broilers. These birds are bred to grow, and they grow hard. 6 to 7 weeks from chick to slaughter weight. That's it. You feed them, you process them, you're done. The benefit is speed and a freezer full of chicken in under 2 months. The cost is that they're not pets, they don't lay eggs, and if you keep them alive past about 8 weeks, they start having serious health problems because their bodies were never built to live that long.
If you want eggs, steady, year-round, every morning eggs, you want layers. A good layer breed will give you somewhere around 300 eggs in her first full year of production. Think about that. 20 hens, 300 eggs each. That's the 6,000 egg number from the start of this video. But layers take patience. They don't start laying until they're about 5 months old. So you're feeding them for almost half a year before you see a single egg. I got this wrong the first time. I bought 20 broilers thinking they'd lay eggs and feed us. By week 6, I had a freezer problem and 0 eggs, and I had to start a layer flock from scratch the next spring. Don't do what I did. And then there's the third option, the one most homesteaders actually want once they understand it.
Dual-purpose birds, breeds like Sasso, Kuroiler, Rhode Island Red, Plymouth Rock. These birds are hardy. They forage. They lay a respectable number of eggs, usually around 200 a year, and the ones you don't keep for laying can be raised out for meat. They're slower to grow than broilers, and they lay fewer eggs than dedicated layers, but they do both jobs well enough that one flock can feed your family in 2 ways. For a backyard flock of 20 to 50 birds, dual purpose is what I'd recommend to most people starting out. You get eggs almost daily, you get meat once or twice a year when you cull older hens or extra roosters, and you don't have to run 2 separate operations.
So, before you do anything else, before housing, before feed, before you even look at a chick, decide which of those 3 you want: eggs, meat, or both. Write it down. That decision shapes everything that comes next. And speaking of housing, that's where the next mistake happens, and it's the one that quietly kills first-year flocks before disease ever shows up. Because the number you've probably seen online for how much space chickens need is roughly half of what they actually need. Here's a number floating around in every beginner chicken guide: 50 square feet for 50 birds, 1 square foot per chicken. That number shows up in a lot of commercial leaning guides, and for industrial setups with controlled ventilation and constant cleaning, it's technically survivable.
For a backyard flock, it's a disaster waiting to happen. Real backyard space, the kind that gives you healthy birds, fewer feather pecking problems, and hens that actually lay well, is closer to 4 square feet per bird inside the coop and 8 to 10 square feet per bird in the outdoor run. That means for 20 hens, you're looking at about 80 square feet of coop and 160 to 200 square feet of run. For 50 birds, you're looking at 200 square feet of coop and 400 to 500 square feet of run. That sounds like a lot. It's not. A 20 by 10 run for 20 hens fits in a corner of an average suburban backyard. The reason this space matters isn't because chickens are picky. It's because when you crowd them, 3 things happen, fast.
First, they start pecking each other. Feathers, then skin, then blood. Once a hen sees blood on another hen, the whole flock joins in, and you can lose a bird in a single afternoon. Second, the litter never has time to dry out. Wet litter means ammonia. Ammonia means respiratory disease. Respiratory disease means a vet bill or a dead flock. Third, the dominant hens block the weaker ones from food and water. So half your birds are slowly starving while you're scratching your head about why your egg count is so low. In a properly sized coop, ammonia stays below 25 parts per million, which is the level chickens can tolerate. In a crowded coop, it can spike to over 50 by morning. That alone is enough to stop a hen from laying for a week.
Now, the housing itself, there are 3 real options for a backyard setup. The deep litter system is the simplest and what I use. You build a coop with a dry floor, concrete or compacted dirt is fine, and cover it with 6 to 8 inches of dry bedding. Wood shavings work great. Straw is okay. You don't clean it constantly. You let the bedding build up, add fresh on top every couple of weeks, and once or twice a year you shovel the whole thing out and put it on your compost pile. The bedding actually starts to compost in place, which generates a little heat in winter. It's low effort, it's natural, and it works. The battery cage system is what commercial layer operations use. Small wire cages, each holding a few birds, stacked in rows. I don't recommend it for backyard.
It's expensive, it's hard on the birds, and the whole point of a backyard flock is that they get to be chickens. Skip it. The free-range or pastured system is the dream. Birds with full access to grass, bugs, and sunlight, with a secure coop they return to at night. If you have the land and you can keep predators out, do this. Free-range eggs taste different. The yolks are darker, the whites are firmer, and the birds themselves are healthier because they're eating closer to what they evolved to eat. Whatever system you pick, the coop itself needs 3 things, non-negotiable: ventilation up high, dryness on the floor, and a way to lock predators out at night. Raccoons, foxes, hawks, neighborhood dogs, they all want your birds. A latched door isn't enough.
Raccoons can open simple latches with their hands. Use a 2-step latch or a carabiner. If you're sitting there thinking your backyard isn't big enough for this, it almost certainly is. A flock of 20 hens needs less square footage than most people use for a garden shed. And what they give back every single day is something the grocery store can't match. We've covered purpose and housing. The next part is where most people get the mechanics wrong in ways they don't even notice. And it's why so many backyard flocks lay great in summer and almost nothing in winter. If you're building a backyard that feeds your family without depending on a grocery store, chickens, garden, soil, the whole system, that's exactly what this channel exists for. Hit subscribe and stay with me.
Here's the thing most beginners discover the hard way in October. Your hens lay all summer, eggs every morning. Then the days get shorter, and 1 week in late September, the basket is half full. By November, you're getting 2 eggs from 12 hens. By December, sometimes nothing. You didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't know about photoperiod. Chickens lay eggs because of light. Specifically, they need 12 to 16 hours of light per day to keep producing consistently. When daylight drops below that, which happens for most of North America from October through February, their bodies decide it's not time to lay. It's time to rest, regrow feathers, and wait for spring. The fix is simple. You add light. Not a lot, not bright stadium light.
Just enough to keep the total daily hours, natural plus artificial, somewhere between 12 and 16. I use a single low wattage LED bulb on a timer, set to come on around 4:30 in the morning and turn off when daylight takes over. That gets me to the 14-hour target through the whole winter. My hens keep laying. Not at peak rate, production naturally dips in cold weather, but I get eggs almost every day. Here's the part most people get wrong. Add the light in the morning, not the evening. If you light up the coop at sunset and then suddenly cut it off when you go to bed, the birds get stranded in the dark mid-perch and can hurt themselves trying to find their roost. Morning lighting solves that. They wake up to soft light, eat, drink, and as the sun rises, the artificial light just blends out. But here's the trade-off nobody mentions. Hens have a finite number of eggs in them. Forcing year-round production with extra light shortens their productive life by about a year. Instead of laying well for 3 or 4 years, they'll peak out in 2. For a backyard family flock, that's usually a fine trade. For a long-term breeding flock, it might not be. You decide. One more thing. Chicks need different light. Day-old chicks need light pretty much around the clock for the first week. 23 hours of light, 1 hour of dark. Mostly so they can find food and water and stay warm. You gradually reduce the light as they grow. Which brings us to the most fragile and most overlooked stage of the whole operation. Because if you mess up the first 3 weeks of a chick's life, everything else you're going to learn in this video doesn't matter. A day-old chick is small enough to fit in the palm of your hand, weighs almost nothing, and is roughly 15 minutes away from dying if you don't get the heat right. That sounds dramatic. It's not. Chicks can't regulate their own body temperature for the first few weeks. They depend entirely on you to give them the right environment. Get it right, and they grow into healthy birds. Get it wrong, and you wake up to dead chicks 2 or 3 days in a row before you figure out what's happening. The rule is simple: 95 degrees Fahrenheit for week 1. Drop 5 degrees each week after that. Week 2 is 90. Week 3 is 85. By week 6, you're at 70 or so, and they're feathered enough to handle ambient temperature. You measure temperature with a thermometer at chick height, the floor, not the air. And here's the trick that's worth more than any thermometer. Watch the chicks themselves. They'll tell you what they need. If they're all huddled directly under the heat lamp, piled on each other, peeping loudly, they're cold. Lower the lamp. If they're pressed against the walls of the brooder, mouths open, panting, they're too hot. Raise the lamp. If they're scattered evenly around the brooder, eating, drinking, dozing on their sides like little loaves of bread, that's perfect. Leave it. One safety note.
You'll see old guides recommending charcoal stoves for brooding heat. Don't do it. Indoor charcoal produces carbon monoxide, and chicks are even more sensitive to it than people. Use a brooder lamp, a heat lamp rated for poultry, with a ceramic socket and a safety cage. They cost about $30 to $40. They don't kill anything. For feed in the brooder, use Chick Starter, a high-protein crumble, around 20 to 22% protein. They eat constantly at this stage. Keep the feeder full and clean. For water, use a shallow chick waterer with marbles or small pebbles in the trough. Chicks can drown in even half an inch of water in the first few days. The marbles let them drink without falling in. After a week or so, you can switch to a regular waterer. And don't crowd them.
A standard cardboard or plywood brooder ring should give each chick about half a square foot of floor space in the first 2 weeks, expanding to a full square foot by week 4. Crowded chicks pile on each other, suffocate the ones on the bottom, and pass disease faster than you can react. 3 weeks of attention, that's what you owe them. After that, the hard part is mostly behind you. Feed is going to be your biggest ongoing expense, by a long way. So getting it right isn't just a health thing, it's a financial thing. The mistake most people make is feeding one type of feed for the whole life of the bird. They go to the farm store, grab a bag labeled chicken feed, and pour it into the trough every day for 2 years. That doesn't work because chickens don't need the same nutrition at every stage of their life. A growing chick needs protein for muscle and feathers. A maturing pullet needs balanced nutrition without too much calcium, which can damage developing kidneys. A laying hen needs calcium, a lot of it, to keep producing strong eggshells. Feed them the wrong thing at the wrong stage, and they grow slowly, lay poorly, or develop health problems you'll spend money fixing. Here's the schedule. For broilers, the meat birds, weeks 1 through 3, starter feed, high protein around 22%. This is the foundation of their growth. Weeks 4 and 5, grower feed, around 20% protein, slightly less intense, supporting the transition from chick to growing bird.
Week 6 until slaughter, finisher feed. Around 18% protein, but higher in energy. This puts the final weight on for processing. For layers, the egg birds, weeks 1 through 8, chick starter. Weeks 9 through about 18, pullet grower or developer feed. Lower protein than starter, lower calcium than layer feed. This is critical. You do not feed layer feed to pullets that aren't laying yet, because the calcium is too high for their growing bones and kidneys. Around 18 weeks, or when about 5% of the flock is laying their first eggs, switch to layer feed. Around 16% protein with added calcium. This is what they'll eat for the rest of their laying life. Are you giving your layers a separate calcium source on the side?
Most beginners don't, and it's the difference between thin-shelled eggs that break in your hand and thick shells that hold up. That separate source is oyster shell. You put it in a separate small feeder, free choice, and the hens take what they need. Hens are remarkably good at self-regulating calcium when it's available. They'll grab extra during peak laying and leave it alone when they don't need it. A 5-pound bag costs a few dollars and lasts months for a small flock. For dual-purpose birds, you can run them on a slightly modified version of the layer schedule, often supplemented with kitchen scraps, garden trimmings, and whatever they forage if they're allowed outside. That foraging supplement matters more than people think.
A free-ranging hen can get up to 20% of her diet from bugs, grass, and seeds, which dramatically cuts your feed bill. Some homesteaders mix their own feed from corn, wheat bran, soybean meal, fish meal, and a vitamin-mineral premix. It can save real money at scale, 20 to 40% off the commercial bag price, but it requires getting the protein percentages right. If you're new, start with commercial feed and worry about mixing your own after your first full year. Don't introduce two new variables at the same time. This is the one I want you to take more seriously than anything else in this video, because it's the most boring chapter and the most consequential. A laying hen will drink about a pint of water a day in mild weather. In summer, double that.
A flock of 20 layers drinks about 2.5 gallons a day. 40 hens, 5 gallons, every single day. And here's what happens when they don't get it. If a hen goes 12 hours without water on a hot day, she'll stop laying for 1 to 2 weeks. 24 hours without water in summer can kill her. Water deprivation kills more backyard chickens than disease. One missed waterer in July, a tipped-over bucket, a frozen pipe in February, a fouled waterer the birds won't drink from, can cost you weeks of production from the whole flock. People blame the weather, blame stress, blame the breed. It was the water. So here's the system that works. For 20 to 50 birds, you want 2 to 3 water sources, not 1. 2. 3 is better.
If one fails, gets dirty, gets knocked over, gets blocked, the others keep the birds alive. Redundancy is the whole game with water. The best system for backyard scale is nipple drinkers off a small water reservoir. Nipple waterers stay clean because the chickens trigger them on demand. Bell drinkers and open troughs work too, but they get fouled with bedding and droppings quickly and need cleaning every day. In winter, you need to keep water from freezing. There are heated waterers you can buy, or you can use a cookie tin heater under a metal waterer, or simply swap out frozen waterers twice a day with warm ones from the house. Pick a method and have a winter plan before October. And one more thing.
Add electrolytes to the water during 3 specific times: heat waves, the days after vaccination, and any time you see a bird looking stressed or weak. Poultry electrolyte powder is cheap, it goes a long way, and it can save birds that would otherwise spiral. A little vitamin and mineral mixer in the water also helps during the brooding phase and after debeaking, if you ever need to do that. The principle is simple. Clean water, available always, in more than one spot. Get that right, and you've solved more problems than any feed program ever will. There's a long list of diseases that could hit a backyard flock. Most of them won't, but a few will, and these are the 4 you have to know. Newcastle disease, highly contagious, often fatal. The signs are dramatic. Birds gasping for air, twisting their necks, walking in circles, sudden death. It moves through a flock fast. The fix isn't a cure once they have it. The fix is vaccination, scheduled from day 1. When you buy chicks from a reputable hatchery, ask whether they've been vaccinated for Newcastle and Merrick's. If not, you'll need to do it yourself or have a vet do it. Follow the schedule the supplier gives you. Don't skip it because you're saving money. The vaccines cost a fraction of replacing a wiped-out flock. Coccidiosis. This is the big one for chicks. It's a parasite that lives in the gut, and it shows up as bloody diarrhea, weakness, weight loss, and chicks that just sit there looking miserable. The conditions that breed coccidiosis are wet, dirty bedding.
The conditions that prevent it are dry, clean bedding plus a starter feed that contains an anticoccidial called amprolium, sometimes labeled medicated starter. For pasture-raised birds, you can use a non-medicated feed if you keep the bedding ruthlessly clean. For confined birds, the medicated starter is cheap insurance. I lost 3 chicks to cocci in my 2nd year because I wasn't changing the brooder bedding often enough. They went from fine to dead in less than 48 hours. I switched to medicated starter the next week, and I haven't lost one since. Merrick's disease. This one's a virus. It causes paralysis. Often you'll see one leg sticking out forward, the other back, the bird trying to walk and failing. There's no cure.
The good news is the vaccine given to day-old chicks is highly effective. Most reputable hatcheries will vaccinate for Merrick's for a few extra cents per chick. Pay it. It's worth every penny. Foulpox. This shows up as scabby sores on the comb, wattles, and sometimes inside the mouth. It's spread by mosquitoes mostly. Vaccination works for prevention. For an existing case, mosquito control around the coop, eliminating standing water, sometimes mosquito netting on the windows, slows the spread. It's rarely fatal in healthy birds, but it stops egg production cold while they're recovering. You don't need to memorize every disease. You need to know these 4, get the vaccines done on schedule, keep the bedding dry, and watch your birds every single day.
Which is the next thing? Daily observation. 5 minutes a morning that saves you everything. But before that, one quick note. Because the question I get most often after this section is which book should I read to go deeper on the chicken side of homesteading? I wrote one called Backyard Chicken Basics that covers exactly this. The housing decisions, the feed schedule, the vaccination calendar, and the integration with composting in the garden. It's the book I wish I'd had in year 1. Link is in the description if you want to go deeper. Most people lose their first flock to disease that didn't have to come in. It comes in on the bottom of a friend's shoes when they visit to admire the chickens. It comes in on used equipment from a Craigslist sale. It comes in on a new bird from a swap meet that looked perfectly healthy when you brought her home. By the time you see the first sick bird, it's already in your water, your bedding, and the other 19 birds. Biosecurity is just a fancy word for the habits that keep all that out. And these habits cost nothing. Habit 1. Quarantine any new bird for 2 weeks, minimum. Doesn't matter how healthy she looks. Doesn't matter how much you trust the seller. 2 weeks in a separate enclosure with separate feed and water, far enough from your main flock that they can't share airspace if possible. If she's still healthy at the end of 2 weeks, integrate her.
If she shows anything, runny nose, droopy eyes, weight loss, soft droppings, you've just saved your whole flock by catching it in isolation. Quick, honest question. Are you quarantining new birds, or are you just dropping them into the main flock? Most beginners skip it, and it's the single most common way disease enters a backyard operation. Habit 2. Limit visitors, especially other chicken owners. I know that sounds weird, but other people's coops are the second most common source of pathogens. If a neighbor wants to come see your setup, ask them to wear clean shoes, not the ones they wear in their own coop. Better yet, keep a pair of dedicated coop boots by the door and ask visitors to use those. Habit 3. Set up a footbath tray.
A plastic boot tray at the entrance to the coop, filled with a shallow layer of diluted disinfectant. There are poultry-safe ones at any farm store. Anyone going into the coop steps in it first. Refresh the solution every few days. Habit 4. Clean the coop on a real schedule. Even with deep litter, you're adding fresh bedding regularly, raking the surface and doing a full clean-out at least once a year. Disinfect the walls, the nesting boxes, the perches. Let it dry completely before adding new bedding. Habit 5. Dispose of dead birds properly. If a bird dies, bury it deep, at least 3 feet down, away from the coop, or burn it. Never throw it in regular compost. Never leave it sitting somewhere predators can find it and drag it back.
Dead birds are a disease source for every other bird on the property. Habit 6. Isolation cage on standby. Keep a small wire cage or a covered cardboard box you can deploy fast. The minute a bird looks off, lethargic, fluffed up, hiding in the corner, separate her. 2 reasons. 1, you stop whatever she has from spreading. 2, you can monitor her food, water, and droppings closely without the other birds bullying her. These 6 habits, done consistently, prevent the majority of catastrophic flock losses. They cost almost nothing. They take maybe an extra 10 minutes a week, and they're invisible. You'll never know which flock-wide disaster you avoided by doing them.
There's a small set of natural remedies that experienced backyard keepers have been using for decades, long before commercial poultry medicine existed. They don't replace vaccines, they don't cure serious diseases, but they do something more useful day to day. They keep healthy birds healthy, and they give you cheap options when you spot the early warning signs. The $4 item is raw apple cider vinegar. Not the clear pasteurized stuff from the cooking aisle, the cloudy raw kind with what's called the mother, the colony of beneficial bacteria floating in it. About a tablespoon per gallon of drinking water, 2 or 3 days a week. It mildly acidifies the gut, supports good bacteria, and acts as a gentle antibacterial in the water itself.
It also seems to make the water more palatable to chickens. They drink more, which helps in summer. Garlic. Crushed raw cloves in their water once a week or chopped into their feed. Garlic has been studied as an antibacterial and antiparasitic, and the practical evidence in backyard flocks is strong. It supports respiratory health, helps with gut worms, and may slightly reduce egg attractant odors that draw predators. 2 or 3 crushed cloves per gallon of water is plenty. Ginger. Less famous than garlic, but useful. A small amount of fresh ginger grated into feed or steeped in their water supports digestion and circulation, especially in cold weather. Some keepers swear it improves egg laying in winter. The evidence is mostly anecdotal, but it doesn't hurt them, and it's cheap to try.
Aloe vera. A small amount of aloe gel in their water, about a teaspoon per gallon, supports immune function and gut health, especially during recovery from illness or after a stressful event like moving the flock. Here's where I have to be honest with you. None of this replaces real medicine when you have a real disease. If you've got Newcastle in your flock, no amount of apple cider vinegar is going to fix it. Vaccines work. Antibiotics, when prescribed by a vet for a specific bacterial infection, work. What these natural supports do is keep healthy birds resilient enough that they're less likely to get sick in the first place. Think of them as the equivalent of you eating well and sleeping enough, not the same thing as the medicine you take when you're already sick.
The pairing is what matters. Vaccines for the 4 big diseases: clean, dry bedding, good feed, plenty of water, and the natural supports running in the background to keep the bird's baseline strong. That combination is what backyard flocks have been built on for 100 years, and it still works better than either approach alone. Every morning when you go out to the coop, you have one job before you do anything else. Stand there and watch them for 5 minutes. Not feeding, not collecting eggs, just watching. Healthy chickens move with intention. They scratch, they peck, they walk with their tails up. Their eyes are bright. Their combs are red and full. Their feathers are smooth and clean. They eat first thing in the morning. They're hungry. They drink.
They mix with the rest of the flock. A sick chicken looks different in ways you'll learn to spot in seconds once you've trained your eye. She'll be standing alone, often in a corner. Her feathers will be fluffed up. That's the body trying to hold heat because her temperature is dropping. Her comb might be pale or shrunken. Her eyes might be half closed. She won't go to the food when the rest of the flock does. She might be standing in one spot when the others are active. The earlier you catch it, the more options you have. A bird identified as sick on day 1, isolated, given warm water with electrolytes, watched closely, often recovers. A bird you don't notice until day 3 is usually too far gone. Remember the isolation cage I mentioned in the biosecurity section?
This is when it earns its keep. The minute you see one of those signs, into the isolation cage she goes. Check the droppings too. Healthy chicken droppings are firm, brown, with a small white cap of urates. Watery droppings, blood in the droppings, bright green or yellow droppings, those are warning signs. Not always a crisis, but always a reason to watch that bird closely for the next 24 hours. And keep records, not elaborate ones, just a notebook in the coop or on your phone, where you write down how many eggs today, any sick birds, any deaths, when you vaccinated last, when you cleaned the coop last. 6 months from now, when something goes wrong, those notes are the thing that tells you what changed and when.
Comment flock below if you're working on starting or growing a backyard flock this year. I read every single one, and it's where the next round of video topics comes from. This is the rhythm that turns a hobby into a system. 5 minutes of watching, a quick check of food and water, eggs collected, notes jotted down. Maybe 15 minutes total. Once you've built the habit, you'll catch problems before they become disasters, and the flock will mostly run itself. For a lot of people watching this, the goal isn't a business. It's just feeding the family with real food. That's a fine goal, and you don't need to read this last section if that's where you are.
But if you want the flock to pay for itself, to cover the feed and the supplies and maybe a little extra, that's absolutely achievable with 20 to 50 birds. Here's how. Start with the basic math. A flock of 20 layers, producing well, gives you around 40 dozen eggs a month. Your family eats, let's say, 8 to 10 dozen of that. That leaves about 30 dozen a month to sell or give away. At backyard farm gate prices in most of the US, 12 to 24 months from now, that's somewhere in the range of, and I want you to check your local prices because they vary a lot by region, $5 to $8 a dozen. So that's roughly $150 to $250 a month in eggs.
If turning your backyard into something that actually feeds your family and pays its own bills is what you're after, that's the whole point of this channel. Subscribe if you haven't yet. We cover one piece of that system every week. Who buys them? Start with the people closest to you. Neighbors, coworkers, your church, your kids' school parents. The first 10 customers come from your phone contacts, not from marketing. Once those people are buying, they tell other people, and you grow by word of mouth. If you have more eggs than your personal network needs, the next step is local. Farmers markets, if you have one nearby. Small independent grocery stores. A roadside stand at the end of your driveway with a cooler and a cash box.
Some folks use Facebook neighborhood groups effectively. Post pictures of the eggs, the hens, the carton. Real eggs from a real backyard sell themselves to anyone who's eaten supermarket eggs for too long. Pricing. Don't underprice. Backyard eggs are not commodity eggs, and you'll exhaust yourself fast if you try to compete with grocery store prices. Price them at what they're worth, what a thoughtful customer would pay for free-range, fresh, local eggs from someone they trust. In most markets, that's $6 to $8 a dozen, sometimes more. Branding and value added. Get nice cartons. Print a simple label with your flock's name and your address, or use a stamp. The presentation alone justifies a higher price. If you have the time and the kitchen space, value-added products are where margins get interesting. Pickled eggs, custom blend egg pastas, even just hard-boiled eggs ready to go. Each of those multiplies the value of a basic egg. Scaling up. If you start at 20 and you want to grow, do it slowly. 20 to 50 is one stretch, 50 to 100 is another. Each scale change has its own challenges. Different housing, different feed logistics, different customer base. Don't jump 3 steps at once. Reinvest your egg money into bigger housing, then more birds, then better marketing. In 2 or 3 years, a backyard flock can become real supplemental income. But all of that, the selling, the scaling, the side income, only matters if you've done the foundation right, the right breed.
The right space, the right feed, the lighting, the water, the vaccinations, the biosecurity, the daily watching. Do those right and the rest takes care of itself. If you do one thing differently because of this video, make it the space rule. 4 square feet of coop, 8 to 10 of run per bird. Build that and almost every other problem in this whole system gets easier. Because when you give 20 to 50 chickens the room they actually need, they stop fighting each other. They stop getting sick as often. They lay better. They eat less because they're calmer and less stressed. And they integrate into your backyard the way they were always meant to. Scratching up bugs, turning your compost, fertilizing your garden, and dropping a basket of eggs on your kitchen counter every morning.
That's not just chickens. That's the start of a backyard that feeds you back. 20 hens, a small coop, a corner of the yard. It's a smaller footprint than most people's garage, and it produces real food every single day from something almost any family can build in a weekend. If this is the direction you're going, closer to real food, closer to home, less dependent on a supply chain that can't always be trusted, the next video is the missing piece. We're going into how to integrate the chicken system with the garden bed, the composting loop, the pest control, the free fertilizer. It's where backyard chickens stop being a hobby and start being a system. I'll see you there.